From ornaments made out of exotic animals and vintage watches that are the epitome of class, to blankets that represented power in previous ages, here are 7 of the most insanely expensive appraisals on Antique Roadshow, starting with something that was taken for granted for almost 80 years by the Guest family.
For some time was in bad condition, and it was hanging behind a door.
Behind a door?
Behind a door in the house. If that door was open, then you couldn't see the painting.
This oil painting had originally been bought by the Guest's ancestor many decades ago.
Well, it's been in my family for over 80 years. It was purchased somewhere around 1930 by my great-grandparents.
In Mexico or in the United States?
I believe it was purchased in Mexico.
Which was several years after Rivera painted it at a young age, after which he went on to become a big name across the globe. The appraiser shared her understanding of Rivera's status in the art scene, how this painting had a specifically unique quality to it.
My understanding of the painting's history is that it was painted in 1904 by Diego Rivera. And at that point, Diego Rivera, who is arguably one of the most important Latin American 20th century artists, was only 18 years old. And this was only, I think, 3 or 4 paintings by the artists that are known from that early time. It's a wonderful period, early 20th century painting.
What makes this oil painting even more lucrative is the rare type of imprint left by Diego Rivera, and combined with the fact that people had been looking for this specific painting for a long time to add it to Mexico City's historic records.
The search that we found in the authentication process of it is that it had been missing. In the records in Mexico City, it was unknown. Where's the painting? Where is El Albañil? It was an important painting for him in 1904 and then disappeared. From 1930 to roughly 1995 or 6, when it was exhibited and authenticated.
This made the painting even more valuable, despite the fact that it had been restored once.
Now, they have done some restoration on it.
Yes, it has been lined, but it is in very fine restored condition.
Due to the painting's historical significance and beautiful visuals.
The painting itself is by a very important artist. It has a terrific history of being purchased in Mexico in 1930, and it's a very beautiful and important painting.
El Albañil was estimated to be sold in a retail setting at a value of
between $800,000 and $1 million.
Seriously?
Seriously.
Oh my gosh.
6 years later, the painting had risen in value even more and was retailed at a much higher price of $2,200,000. And rightfully so, because even the viewers found themselves in awe of Rivera's work. Painted at age 18? Gee, genius. One keeps looking at it. Must be worth more than US millions. But paintings aren't the only artwork people are crazy for. This mobile, made by Alexander Calder, came with a wholesome backstory involving a few cocktails and quality conversations in the year of 1958.
Calder gave it to my aunt. My aunt and uncle were having a cocktail party, and Calder was visiting friends of theirs who were invited to the party, so they took Calder along. And my aunt was very creative, and among other things, she had done a needlepoint pillow of one of Calder's works. And he was astounded. He'd never seen one like that before. And so she gave it to him. And a couple of days later, somebody had appeared at the doorway, and he had given her this mobile as a thank you for the pillow.
And so the mobile stayed in the family for many years to come. Although this mobile has seen better days, it had a few touch-ups here and there, so its value could have taken a hit.
And you had a slight restoration to it in 1986. Some of the colors were touched up a little bit.
Yeah.
And clearly, that's going to have an effect on the value.
But this masterpiece continued to be as brilliant and rare as always because the maker, aka Calder, had something different to bring to the table.
Yes.
Alexander Calder essentially invented the art form known as a mobile,
which was all the rage among art enthusiasts in the 50s.
And it became very iconic of 1950s modern art.
On top of that, the materials and techniques used in the formation of this art mobile make it to be one of Calder's finest works.
And I think the late 50s sort of marks a turning point where he begins to concentrate more on larger installations. It's made on very thin wire and then These are usually either aluminum or an anodized, weather-resistant material that it slipped in and then very delicately soldered. And you can see in here where all of the knots and joints all put in a very balancing kind of format.
He even deviated from his usual classic choice of primary colors, which might get greater attention from appraisers.
He always liked the use of primary colors. This back one is a little bit more of an orange, and some of the other appraisers on the set thought this might be a little bit unusual for a color.
Looks like this lady brought luck in spades, as the appraiser brought up an organization that could make this woman even richer because their job is to authenticate and preserve Calder's work.
Alexander Calder Foundation,
Yes.
which is a major element in both identifying the work of Alexander Calder, authenticating it.
Knowing this, the woman had done her homework as well.
You had sent some documentation.
We've sent the documentation and a transparency, and they just said they would need to look at it in person, and we haven't gone to New York to do that.
Like any foundation, is set up so that an artist's work are not diluted. And that's why they're very diligent about keeping up to make sure that things are authenticated. So if that they are sold, that they do have that authenticity.
The woman had a hazy idea of the mobile's value because she had recovered a quote for it many moons ago when she was getting work done on it.
The man who restored it said at least $30,000.
However, time has been kind to this artwork, and it had tons of potential now. Depending on the medium of transaction, the mobile could bring the lady great fortunes, enough to make her do a double take.
We worked on the values to somewhat of a consensus, and it still needs to be validated. Based upon that, a fair auction value, the range is somewhere between $400,000 and $600,000.
How much?
$400,000 to $600,000 at auction as somewhat of a wholesale price.
If the woman took an alternative route of selling it in a retail setting, she could get even greater profits, as the artist's name value is enough to bring in all the dollar bills these days.
Right now, Alexander Calder's market is extremely hot, and in a good retail setting, it would not be at all inconceivable that this very small, wonderful piece of art could probably break $1 million.
Oh my God.
Since this initial appraisal in 2010, the price had been boosted to $2 million by 2022. Even though the owner and appraiser for this mobile really believed in its beauty, other people aren't so crazy about this particular art form. I think I'll start getting my old coat hangers out and some spray paint, call myself an artist, and make some mobile dollars. Wow, $1 million. What sane person would pay $1 million for that dust collector? Most artwork is more about the story behind it or the talent that goes into it, like in the case of this Frederick Remington portrait with a letter originating from the year 1986. Interestingly, the guest caught the appraiser's attention before everyone else due to his mistreatment of the treasure he obliviously owned.
This man came up to the desk and he had this painting in a cardboard box, and he kept pulling it up and down. And I noticed that there was a foam core in front of it. And every time he pulled it up, I would see more and more of that magnificent sky. Finally, I said, get the painting out of that box and stop putting it back in and out of that box before you get it damaged. You're the first for me. I've never reprimanded a guest for manhandling a painting before.
I'm glad you're taking care of my painting.
To give the appraiser some context on how he ended up with this painting, the guest proudly expressed that he had family ties with the face starring in the painting, the sitter who had a personal connection with the artist himself.
Lee Febriger was my great-grandfather.
That is this gentleman.
This is this gentleman.
Yes.
And he was a friend of Frederick Remington.
Back then, the artist had enlisted the sitter as a military professional, specifically for a themed series based in a bustling American city.
Who, in 1896, painted his portrait as part of a military series in El Paso.
And he was captain in the infantry.
Captain,
Yes.
right, infantry.
Some pieces of art are such wonders that they speak for themselves, which is the case with this painting as well. No one could tell that the artist had not received formal training at the time of painting this.
He didn't have a tremendous amount of training, but a natural instinct for the vitality and the style of the West. And this portrait is a terrific example of that.
Such historical artifacts are even better and expensive when they come in a combo, which is why this guest had luck working in his favor. The painting also came with a letter from Remington to the guest's great-grandfather, proving that they were actually friends who knew each other closely.
The letter was Remington speaking to the sitter and how much he enjoyed their time together, and there was a lot of meat in it, which is really what you want. There was no anonymity to it at all. It was personal for Remington, and it was personal for the sitter.
It's also quite interesting how the guest family got their hands on this painting, since the artist had not originally given this painting to his muse, aka the guest's great-grandfather.
When he died, this painting was in his home in upstate New York. His home and studio in upstate New York became the Frederick Remington Museum. And the family of the sitter tracked down the painting to be there. And they went to the museum and said, you know, hey, this is our folk. We would really love to have this painting. The family came into negotiations with the group, and in the late 1940s were able to get the painting.
Turns out that it was really smart of them to acquire this painting, as it made their family a huge fortune because of these items' many qualities.
He really is an iconic figure in American painting. And this piece with the very dashing figure, the beautiful shadow, the abstracted landscape behind, is really a wonderful example of Remington's work at the turn of the century.
Finally, the appraiser gave her generous estimate, making the guest absolutely delighted at the priceless painting and letter combo he had in his possession.
This piece, together with the letter, would be something that I would value at auction between $600,000
Oh my goodness.
and $800,000.
I was hoping I would be wildly exuberant. I am.
And certainly for insurance at in excess of $800,000.
It was a win for the appraiser too, as she could finally take a sigh of relief that these precious items will be safely kept in a preserved condition from now onwards, preferably somewhere all art enthusiasts could observe and admire them in their full glory.
I think he may have been thinking around $30,000, $25,000, $30,000, but not that level. I can only speculate that he came home, told his family what it's worth, and they said, get it out of here, because something like that is subject to any sort of mayhem in a private home. And it's much safer in a museum. He had the painting restored, professionally restored, and it's now in the Birmingham, Alabama Museum for everyone to see.
Considering how a liking for Remington's work only increased among the patrons, the appraiser guessed that the value of these items would only reach greater heights in 2019.
The market has gone up for Western art, and the market is still very strong for Remington. And in today's market in 2019, I would value the painting between $800,000 and $1.2 million.
It's not always the case that only famous artists' work will hold value in people's eyes. Sometimes, some items end up being absolute superstars on this show just because they have insane street cred, or simply because they remind people of a time when the world was perfect in their eyes. Similarly, this lady showed up with a whole collection and a story. The item she brought with herself not only had a rich history for most sports lovers, but also for her family, who might take pride in this piece of history associated with their clan.
Back in 1871, my great-great-grandmother had a boarding house in Boston, and she housed the Boston baseball team. Most of them had come from Cincinnati Red Stocking.
And the team she name-dropped were not your everyday basic baseball players too. They had their significant social standing for legit reasons.
And we're among the first to be paid to play baseball.
Do you know what they were paid in those days, the first professional teams?
Well, I know the Cincinnati Reds, the first $9,300 I read was the entire payroll for the baseball team at that time.
And just for context, $9,300 in 1872 is equal to $243,000 today. If you thought these players were making good money for that time, wait till you see how their fame benefited the guest as well. A young man who had once cherished these cards as his favorite possession might have had no idea how they could be profitable for his future generations.
These cards went to your great-grandfather? That's how he got them, and they got handed down to you?
Yeah, apparently he collected them, and he unfortunately cut them down to fit this little album, so they're all slightly askew.
However, the guest has come prepared to make up for her great-grandfather's mishap, as she had something else to offer as well.
And the thing that's special, in addition to the cards, is this letter, and they all wrote a little sentence and signed it.
They must have really loved her. She did, I'm sure she did the cooking, the cleaning for them, because if you read some of these lines here, I am just going upstairs to supper and feel awful hungry, but do not expect much. Poor meals here, too hungry to say any more. Harry Wright. Here we have, would that we were home again. My sentiments have been expressed in the above paragraphs. Big meals, A.G. Spalding.
After taking note of how interesting this collection is, the appraiser shared her opinion.
Well, what you have here are some of the earliest known 1871 photographic baseball cards.
Since this card collection featured some of the legends among baseball fans, it was bound to price well.
Harry Wright here and his brother George Wright is here. You know, these were the original Wright brothers. Also, Albert Spalding. Now, Spalding is a very familiar name, isn't it?
Right.
He was the first well-known player to use a fielding glove. And what did he build from that? A sporting goods empire.
With the cherry on top being the highly personalized letter.
To have this letter with Harry Wright and Spalding on it is tremendous. To have anything with their signatures on it is phenomenal, because again, you're talking about the precursor to the National and American Leagues.
And yet, the guest wanted to keep his family memorabilia for the sake of nostalgia. But not selling it didn't mean it was cheap at all, as knowing what it was worth surely got a reaction from the guest.
I'm gonna value this as an archive, everything here. If you're going to insure it,
Insurance.
I would insure it for at least $1 million.
Are you serious? Oh my.
Is the greatest archive I have ever had at the Roadshow.
Really?
I have to say, you have hit a grand slam today.
Although, American history is not the only one that matters. Instead, fancy stuff can have its origins from places all around the globe. Take the example of these Chinese rhinoceros cups, brought to a taping of Antiques Roadshow happening in the city of Tulsa, Oklahoma, back in 2011. This collection, comprising of 5 rhinoceros cups, dated back all the way to the late 17th or early 18th century, and were acquired by the anonymous owner over the years, spending around $5,000 in total for these items because he believed in their worth. His appraiser, Lark Mason, specialized in Asian art and gave his verdict about this beautiful collection with intricate carvings, making the owner shocked.
I believe that a conservative number would be between $1 million and $1,500,000 for this group.
Serious?
I'm serious.
Whoa.
And hopeful for a financially stable future ahead. Since there has been no official record of him selling the cups, it can only be expected that the cups would make him richer today than they did at the time of this appraisal. Beauty comes from all corners of the world, like in the case of this magnificent piece of fabric that had so much history associated with it, as it ended up in the guest family from a very special personality.
I don't know an awful lot about it, except that it was given by Kit Carson, whoever I'm sure everybody knows in his history, given to the foster father of my grandmother.
And do you know who made this weaving? Do you know what kind of blanket it is?
It's probably a Navajo, but that's about all I know.
But the appraiser gave him a short history lesson on the piece of treasure he had been sitting on for all those years.
It's the first type of chief's blanket made. These were made in about 1840 to 1860, and it's called a ute. first phase.
A ute?
A ute first phase wearing blanket.
A ute
Chief's
first
wearing
phase.
blanket.
Unlike some items that gained their value in time, this blanket had been much sought after since its creation.
And they were very, very valuable at the time. This is Navajo weaving in its purest form.
And what made it even better was how well it had been maintained over the course of time.
The condition of this is unbelievable. Unbelievable. We see these, we've got a little bit of damage over there. It's made from hand-woven wool, but it's so finely done, it's like silk.
And the fine quality of the dyes and technique visible on this blanket.
And this here is dyed with indigo dyes. It was a very valuable dye at the time. And what's really interesting is right here, we have an old repair that was probably done in the 1860s. And it's done with rivaled bayeta, which is in itself a very important thing in Navajo weaving. So all involved. It's an extraordinary piece of art. It's extremely rare.
Despite such high praises being sung for this blanket, the guest still didn't see this evaluation coming his way.
Are you a wealthy man, Ted?
No.
Well, sir, I'm still a little nervous here, I have to tell you. On a really bad day, this textile would be worth $350,000. On a good day, it's about $500,000.
Oh my God.
But more good was coming his way, bringing the man to literal tears.
That I'm giving is not using the Kit Carson provenance. Provenance is sometimes very difficult to ascertain. If we could do research on this and we could prove without a reasonable doubt that Kit Carson did actually own this, the value would increase again, maybe 20%.
Since this initial appraisal in 2001, the value rose significantly by 2021. If you thought these were surprising, wait till you see how high of a price this 1914 Patek Philippe watch racked up after being passed down several generations in the Guest family.
This watch was handed down from my great-grandfather. He was the owner of the St. Paul Pioneer Press and Dispatch back in 1914. When he received this watch, and it was handed down from him to my father, and then he gave it to me.
The appraiser gave the guest a true idea of the details of the fancy accessory he had brought in, along with a mysterious document.
It's manufactured by the Patek Philippe Company of Geneva, Switzerland. This is a photocopy of the original warranty depicting some of the complications of this watch.
Looking like it came straight out of a Disney live action, this watch reveled in its original vintage beauty.
Okay. It has the original crystals and original 18-karat gold engine turn case.
Which is why it was valued at such a high number, sending the guest into blissful denial.
Is now purchasing those watches for their museum. This watch at auction, I suspect, would bring close to $250,000.
No.
Yes.
$250,000?
This is one incredible watch. I've never held a watch like this in my hand.
What? You're kidding.
That is one incredible watch.
It can't be.
Yes.
No way. Why
that is an incredible watch.
Oh, I can't believe it.
It's the finest watch I've ever held in my hand.
Are you serious?
I've never seen anything like it other than photos.
Luckily for him, the Patek Philippe pocket watch became only more valuable and expensive by 2019 since this initial appraisal in 2004, making this one of the most expensive items to ever be showcased on Antiques Roadshow.